Dear Congress, I do apologize for not being able with you physically. I would have liked very much to talk to you in person and to meet you. This is a crucial event. Austria, in recent years and even in a more distant past, was a very difficult place to talk openly and freely about the future of Palestine. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of resilience for the organizers of this Congress to be able to convene it, to insist on their right to talk freely, and for you to insist on your right to participate in an event that will show that quite a few people in Austria are on the right side of history, while the governments of Austria and other European Union members, European countries, are on the wrong side of history, believing that continuing to support the state of Israel, giving immunity to a genocide in Gaza, an ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, an apartheid system inside Israel against the Palestinian citizens of the state, and allowing it to escalate with aggressive policy attacks on the region as a whole, with the danger that such a regional war might even deteriorate into a global one. One of the most important things that we should insist on is language. We should not talk anymore about a conflict. We should not talk about a peace process. And therefore, I think we should also dismiss the conversation about the two states. We are in a different moment in history. It is very clear that what we are seeing here is an Israeli government, a political and military elite that believes that it has a historical opportunity to complete the Zionist program that it was unable to complete in 1948, namely to take over the whole of Palestine and to downsize as much as possible the number of Palestinians living between the rivers Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. This is not going to happen, first and foremost, because the Palestinians are not going to accept it. And as in the past, despite the imbalance of power, they will resist, they will be resilient, and their actions and the Israeli reactions, unfortunately, means that unless there is an international and regional intervention, this kind of bloodshed, carnage, and destruction will continue for a long while. We need to talk about the project of Zionism as colonialism. Otherwise, we are missing the point. Otherwise, we are not analyzing correctly the origins of the violence. And when you don't analyze the origins of the violence, you cannot deal with the symptoms of the violence. So colonialism is not an anachronistic term to describe the Zionist project, and a settler colonialism, or in Israel as a settler colonial state, is not a term that is either irrelevant or even totally wrong. No, this is an accurate term to describe the ideology of the state, its practices, its policies, and this is being done by many people who are experts on the topic, either as historians or political scientists. Any academic work that seems to ignore that definition is probably motivated by loyalty, for whatever reasons, to a narrative, Israeli narrative, that has very little to do with the reality in the past or the reality today. Peace is also not a relevant conversation anymore. Peace you can achieve between two parties that have some sort of a parity between them. But this is an imbalance situation. The strongest army in the region against the weakest guerrilla groups that are trying somehow to survive, All this is not a recipe for peace. If you accept that colonialism is an apt term, then you have to accept also that decolonization is the right term. And decolonization can take form in many ways. There can be a decolonization in which the settler colonial state, in this case Israel, does not recognize the need for that, fights with all its might against it, and then you have a long period of the kind of atrocities and violence that we see today, which unfortunately can continue for a while. Or decolonization can be a process that, if not forces from within the settler colonial society, then at least forces from the outside, can force a slow, incremental, and evolutionary process of changing the colonialist reality, dismantling institutions that perpetuate colonialism, beginning to build a society based on equality for everyone, regardless of who they are, between the river and the sea, focusing on a one democratic state solution, focusing on reintegrating Palestine into the Eastern Mediterranean, to the past of Palestine in the Eastern Mediterranean before 1948, when Jews and Muslims and Christians coexisted, and Palestine was organically connected to Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. All this can also lead to a better reformulation of the political structures in the nation states in the Eastern Mediterranean that were created by the colonialist powers after the First World War. So decolonization here is not just, to my mind, limited to Palestine. I think it can be part of completing the decolonization that the Eastern Mediterranean as a whole is in need of. So these are the two options. The colonialist power or the settler colonial state will not survive forever. History teaches us. And there are already very clear indications within the Israeli Jewish society that this project of Zionism is not sustainable. Implosion of the society from within, the lack of any basis for the secular and religious parts of the society, the growing economic crisis, the totally dependence now on American taxpayer money, which may not be there always, and even the multinational incorporation and military industry might find Israel not anymore as an asset, but rather as a liability. The fact that so many Jews around the world do not associate themselves with Israel is an important factor, as well as the international societies subscription or endorsement of the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement, and the international legal institution beginning to frame Israel as a pariah state. All this and many other processes, and of course the continued Palestinian struggle, means that even if there will be no willingness to decolonize historical Palestine, it will happen. But we would like to have it happening in a non-violent way, or as less violent as possible. And that does not only depend on the Palestinians, that depends on the region, on the international community, because nobody would benefit from a violent destruction of a state that could continue for a very long time with a lot of innocent people suffering. So finally, again, I'm sorry I'm not with you. I hope there will be a chance to meet in the future. Good luck with this incredible conflict. Do not be deterred from saying that Palestine has to be free from the river to the sea. This is a freedom denied to the Palestinians for more than a century. This is a freedom that will be good for everyone. It's a win-win situation for everyone living there and everyone who was expelled from there and has the right to come back. I'm sure that this dark moment in the history of Palestine would be replaced by a new dawn, by a new chapter. We just have to make sure that we have doing all we can to shorten this terrible chapter and help to contribute to the better one that awaits us around the corner. Thank you.